to me, it's just being authentic, right? And how do you be your authentic self? And it's really that expression of your true authentic self, and then teaching men that that's actually your superpower. Like that's what you need to focus on is by being yourself. Don't hold yourself back because of fear of judgment
Mhm.
or past mistakes or guilt or shame. It's embracing who you are fully.
Hello and welcome to the Cardinal Way for Men. My name is Ed Cardinal. Recently, I went onto LinkedIn and I began to do a little bit of a search for who I felt would be a great guest for my show. And I came across the bio of my guest this evening, and that is Rebecca Shocker. And what really kind of jumped out at me was that she does mindset coaching for men. And it surprised me that a woman would be doing coaching for men, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. And Rebecca, you and I had a quick conversation on the phone recently about that. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Ed. I'm happy to be here.
So let's get right to that question. How did you get into mindset coaching for men?
Absolutely. That's a great
Mm,
question. So
mm,
people always ask me that.
mm,
I started my coaching journey almost 7 years ago, and I started with being a health coach. And under the umbrella of being a health coach, there's a few pillars that I feel like you have to focus on in order to have optimal health. So I started out with fitness coaching and actually started coaching women, but I realized very, very quickly into the journey that I didn't enjoy teaching people how to work out. And I also understood that the reason that these women maybe weren't having the results that they desired in their life, it wasn't their workout routine or what they were eating, it was more of their mindset. And so I took a big focus on mindset and life coaching. And then from there, I picked up my first male client and we did life coaching. And then it kind of trickled down and started to build. And more men kept showing up. And honestly, I resisted it for a really long time because I was like, I don't want to work with men. Like, why are men showing up?
Really?
So it took me some time to embrace it. And then I
Mm,
just realized, you know what, Rebecca, you are very comfortable speaking with men. You've always been a guy's girl. You've always had friends that were male. And I always say I speak boy. So it works for me. And this is kind of where we're at today. I mean, I have worked with women. I enjoy working with women. They're great students, but somehow it works well with the men. They
mm.
they like the perspective of a female.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. It's interesting because I was thinking, because my focus is helping men who are recovering from alcoholism, and I thought that I would only have men as guests. And you're actually my first female guest, my first woman, and I thought about it, and what came to me is that why would I just have men as guests? Because you do get a different perspective, and I think you have that point of view to offer.
Mhm.
And some men, I believe, identify more with women. I feel more comfortable speaking with women. So I've sort of broken away from that mindset that I was only going to have men as guests, and so you broke the mold for me. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be the first female on your podcast. Thank you.
So talk more about how is it that you help men in what you do.
So the reality is men need someone to talk about their feelings and their emotions.
Mm,
They're not culturally taught how to process their feelings and emotions or express themselves in a way that I feel like everybody needs and can benefit from. So really, I allow them the space. It's just a safe, neutral space for them to actually open up and be vulnerable with me without any judgment and really allow them to start understanding themselves on a deeper level. because we're human and we all have emotions and we all have feelings. And typically, my men have grown to suppress their emotions and their feelings. And so when they come up, they don't know how to deal with it because they've been programmed to think that, oh, that's weak. I'm not going to deal with this. If I just ignore it, it'll go away. But the reality is, when you address those feelings and those emotions, you're able to process through them a lot faster. And so I teach them how to really get comfortable with themselves and embrace themselves fully.
You know, you bring up a good point about that cultural conditioning
Mhm,
and the fact that the messages that we receive as men about expressing emotions, being sensitive, being vulnerable, is seen as a sign of weakness
mhm.
in our culture. And in actuality, I see it as a sign of strength, particularly if you can break away from that cultural conditioning, the shackles of that cultural conditioning. Because if you don't, and I'm sure you've seen this in the men that you work with, incidents of mental health issues, physical issues, rate of suicide, physical abuse towards other men, towards women, increases because men are not expressing emotions. They're not in touch with that part of themselves. Do you
Yeah,
see that? Do you see that in the men that you work with?
I do. And I feel
Mm.
like, honestly, the most attractive thing a man could ever do for himself, like I'm a single female, and the most attractive characteristic that one could ever have is a healed man.
Hmm.
And being a man that's worked on himself and he's done the deep inner work to really understand himself at the deepest level. I
Hmm.
feel like that's so needed for so many, I mean, men and women, but men especially because we don't want it to come out in dysfunctional behavior or outwardly aggressive in a way that's not healthy, right? And so it's like finding that balance between being able to express yourself in a healthy way and understand your feelings and emotions, and then really being able to communicate them, but not, we don't want to swing, right? Like I never feel like you want to swing and be all in your feelings and your emotions and wear them on your sleeve. Like nobody likes that either,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like finding that balance of being masculine
Yeah.
and being in their energy of being able to really be confident with themselves.
Right.
Me, that's very, very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally agree. So, how do you build trust with the men that you work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So
Mm.
obviously I'm a stranger when they first meet me.
Mhm.
Usually they found me on social media or some platform and they'll do their research, find my website or something. But I feel like the way that I build trust is just being real, having conversations that they probably never even talk about, maybe even with their partners or
Wow.
spouses.
Hmm.
And also by sharing my own life experience. I never like to talk about myself, but I find that it's really helpful in a session because it gives them context and it shows that I'm relatable,
Right.
right? I'm not just somebody that's talking the talk. I'm walking the walk. I'm a real life person that's gone through these or similar experiences, even though I'm female. But it's just being relatable, really, I
Right.
feel like really builds that trust.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting because I conduct virtual men's groups,
Mhm.
and I think one of the gifts that I can give the men that I work with is what you're talking about, is to model vulnerability and being able to express emotions. So I do that through needing to share my own story and share times of vulnerability in my life. And uh, a lot of men have difficulty doing that. So being able to model it and create that safe space so they can do the same thing, I think is so important. And that's probably what you're doing when you're working with men. You're creating that safe space that they can uh, do the things that you're modeling, but also the things that you're asking them to do.
Yeah, it's really important. And also just being like a neutral third party.
Mm-hmm.
There's no judgment for me and they can tell me anything and everything and nothing's going to surprise me or, turn me off or anything in that way. It's just, to me, it's just being authentic, right? And how do you be your authentic self? And it's really that expression of your true authentic self, and then teaching men that that's actually your superpower. Like that's what you need to focus on, is by being yourself. Don't hold yourself back because of fear of judgment
Mhm.
or past mistakes or guilt or shame. It's embracing who you are fully is really, really key.
Mm. So what is your superpower?
You know, honestly, I have to say I'm really good at understanding the subconscious mind.
Mm,
I'm I really can pick up on patterns and behaviors. And being that I've been doing this long enough, I've worked with enough people, it's pretty easy to identify why somebody may feel a certain emotion. And then we kind of dig on that of like, well, you probably feel this way because of this or X, Y, and Z, whatever happened in your past.
mm,
And it's really breaking down that subconscious programming, which stems from childhood
mhm,
typically, and then getting to that core and that root cause of these unwanted negative emotions. I have a really good ability just to be able to see inside the subconscious mind. And I don't know how or where I get it, but it works.
mhm. Is that something that you've worked on a lot in your own personal development?
Oh, absolutely. I
Mhm,
use my intuition
mhm,
to guide me in all aspects of life. And
mhm,
really, it was my quest for understanding myself as I went through some turbulent times in my life and, dealt with adversity and struggles. I really wanted to understand me, right? And I've always been a why person, like since I was a kid, very curious, always wanted to know why. Why do we do something, or why is it this way? Why do I have that behavior? So through that and figuring myself out, in turn, I was able to help men figure themselves out,
mhm.
essentially.
Yeah. I mean, you can't take anyone where you haven't been yourself. I mean, that's the way I
Absolutely.
feel, right? I mean, I've been doing personal development work for a long time. As I mentioned in our phone conversation, I've been in recovery for 35 years this year when I was
Mhm.
26. And it's through those challenges, our pain, that we learn the most about ourselves if we take advantage of it. Some people don't. And
Absolutely.
and then using what we learn through those processes to help others. And I know that's what you're doing.
And I feel like that's the gift. Like that's
Mhm.
what we are here to do on this physical plane, is we use those stumbling blocks as stepping stones to propel us forward to actually help others. And I always say, like we go through these hard times, I think, to really just better ourselves. And it's not a negative, but
Right.
it's how to deal with those setbacks or those feelings. And it's being able to walk through that and process it and realize like that is your superpower.
Hmm.
You've gone through this experience. So now let's do something good with it. Don't
Right.
just sit on it. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it.
Right.
You never know the person that it's going to help.
Right.
And to
Absolutely.
me, that makes for a meaningful and purposeful life of serving others.
Mm. I remember you saying life happens for us, not to us. Right. Right. And it's what we can
That's
learn through those processes that most beneficial.
yeah. And so it's teaching people those levels of consciousness and not having a victim mentality
Hmm.
of thinking that life's out to get you and life is so hard and bad things happen to you. It really is just a shift in your mindset, and it's teaching people how can you control your thoughts. And so I really work on self mastery with that myself, and then teaching my clients, just because you have that thought, like we have to challenge that thought if it's negative or unwanted. But first, we need to understand where that thought came from.
Hmm.
That why do you have this thought? Is this thought serving you? If it's not serving you, well, let's create some new thoughts. Because everything in our life, as you know, being in the personal development space, is all about your thoughts. And
Absolutely.
our thoughts create our reality,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
So it's just going through those steps, raising your level of consciousness and seeing the beauty of how life is really unfolding for you.
Mm. So what are some of the strategies you're teaching men to navigate some of those things?
Yes, so the very first thing that I really like my men to do is to really start putting pen to paper and getting to work with writing just an unconscious stream of journaling and really creating a daily habit of it.
Mm,
I journal not every day, but when I'm feeling that I'm maybe too much in my head or have some thoughts I need to get out, I'll definitely grab my notebook. But definitely it's starting with journaling, just writing about what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. And then from there, it's also creating good morning and night routines,
yeah.
like optimizing your health, really prioritizing your health and how you feel. I guess biggest one would be teaching men to pay attention to how they feel and then chasing the better feeling, right? I always say like we have to chase joy. So that comes from what are the thoughts that bring you joy? What's the
Mhm.
better thought? How can we start taking steps and action towards the things that bring us joy? And so it's really coming back to that self-love and that self-care, which
Mm,
so many men do not know how to really have a healthy dose of self-care and what that really looks like to them.
right, right.
It's different for everyone, right?
Yes.
And it's yes, it's I know some women and men it's golfing, with their friends or
Hmm.
going to grab a drink or just whatever it may be, but it's I'm talking about the self-care is how can you meet your own emotional needs?
Hmm.
How do you do that,
Right,
right?
right,
Can't do that unless you're not aware of them,
right.
right?
Yeah.
It's really teaching them that.
Mhm.
It all starts with self-awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. What does your morning routine look like? Mm-hmm.
I used to be really good doing the 5 a.m. club
Mm-hmm.
from Robin Sharma from his book. That honestly like saved me if I hadn't incorporated that. But I have a pretty basic routine, get up, get ready, get the kids out the door if I have them, get them to school, then I hit the gym, come home, change, do my work, whatever I need to do, clean up the house. It's pretty easy, but it's very structured that it's the same way every day.
Right, right.
Don't have the kids and I don't have to take them to school, then I'll do some journaling in the morning, maybe, listening to something that's positive or
Yeah,
something that's uplifting. Just really trying to be very focused on what I allow into my space because I don't like to look at my phone first thing in the morning. I don't want to be influenced by anything external.
right.
I want to wake up with a fresh thought, what my thoughts and feelings are for the day, not to really be influenced by anything else.
Mm. Is it important, do you feel, to have time to yourself in silence and in solitude, which a lot of people have difficulty? So they use their technology as a way to avoid that. Um,
Oh,
I think,
it's such a problem, honestly. I think people are afraid of their own thoughts.
right.
Honestly, I could probably sit all day and do nothing
Mm.
and just be content with my thoughts. I probably do too much of that. Like I'm just very content of just sitting there, looking out the window, thinking. I enjoy it. I
Mm,
feel like it helps me understand myself better.
right, absolutely. Click the link in the description to receive your free ultimate guide for men over 45, Unlocking the 10 Secrets to a Fulfilling Life.
Mm.
And then do you have some sort of routine before you go to bed?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, pretty much the same routine every night. It's making sure that I'm taking my supplements, which
Mhm.
are a dose of magnesium and zinc and calcium and vitamin C, all the good
Yeah.
vitamins I need to take for a good night's sleep, and making sure I'm hydrated, dark, cool room, sleeping at least 7 hours or more if I can. I always put my phone to airplane mode so there's no cellular signal. Don't want any distractions. Some people are like, I could never do that because if my kids aren't with me, and I'm like, whatever's going to happen, it's going to happen and I'll
Right,
deal with it in the morning. Like I'm
right.
not I don't have that mindset, I guess.
Mm.
So kind of boring, honestly. Like I don't, it's not nothing extravagant. It's just having simple little daily habits that set me up for a good night's sleep to have a good morning.
Right, absolutely. I mean, it's great self-care. I mean, the
Mm.
foundational practice is uh, good night's sleep, hydration, nutrition, exercise, and breathing. Do you do any sort of a breathing practice?
Once upon a time, thought I was going to get a tattoo on my wrist right here that would say breathe because I've caught myself. even to this day, like I feel like I'm not breathing. I'm like, Rebecca, you need to breathe,
Mm.
right? And so I have done like box breathing.
Yeah.
I'll try to do the deep stomach breathing, but I'm not consistent with it. It's
Hmm.
probably something I should do, but I definitely believe in the power of breath work. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's very, very powerful. And I believe that most people, particularly in our culture, do not breathe properly, and that can lead to a whole host of other uh, issues, physical,
Oh,
emotional, mental. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's when you're feeling that anxious feeling or overwhelm, it's just take a few deep breaths,
Right.
like calm your nervous system, right? And
Yeah.
so it can be very powerful, but
Mm.
I'm very much a proponent of teaching people how to help themselves without needing anything outside of themselves, meaning no medication, no distractions. There's a lot of uh, a trend, I guess, of hypnosis, breath work, NLP. There's all these different tools that people use and they can be great. But I feel like, can you really teach yourself how to self-soothe, self-heal without needing anything outside of yourself?
Hmm.
'Cause I firmly believe we all have what we need. Like
Absolutely.
everybody has what they need. Sometimes it's just buried deep within, and it's like we need to bring that to the surface, and that's how we process all that stuff that's been buried.
Mm. We talked about this, the stereotypes and the stigmas and the cultural conditioning. How do
Hmm.
you how do you encourage and support men to kind of break free from that? Because it's that can be a challenge. You're kind of stepping out away from that comfort zone, away from the herd, so to speak.
I think the hardest step is always just one, acknowledging that you need help, and then two, asking for it.
Mhm.
Like that's the biggest hurdle that you're going to overcome as a
Right,
man is asking for help. And it doesn't mean anything. It means you actually care about yourself. You care about your well-being. You want to be your best version. You want to be better for yourself, for your family, for your business relationships, whatever it is. And it's just teaching them that it's not selfish. It's actually self-care and it's necessary.
right.
It's absolutely necessary. And obviously, all of my work is confidential.
Mm.
So it's very private. Nothing's ever going to be said outside of the sessions that we have. So
Mhm.
it comes back to just helping them be comfortable, honestly. And also teaching men that if somebody is judgmental or has something negative to say towards you, those aren't your people.
Right,
We
right,
don't care. If people are going to come at you that way, then those aren't the people that you want to surround yourself with. And sometimes, Ed, that means it could even be family members.
right.
And
Absolutely.
that's really hard for a lot of people, but it's like when you put yourself first because you care and you love yourself so much, we can't care what other people are going to think or say about us.
Right,
And if they
absolutely.
don't support us, then we have to be okay saying goodbye or keeping them at arm's distance
Hmm.
for our own well-being, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's another great point. So how do you encourage men to build a support network that's going to be supportive and not sort of try to bring them down or ridicule them? What suggestions do you give men?
Yeah, I will say a lot of my men don't have big social circles.
Right.
That can be a bit of a
Hmm.
excuse me. I myself don't have a big social circle,
Hmm.
but that's on purpose.
Hmm.
And I'm a firm believer in listening to your energy when you're around someone. How do you feel when you're around this person? Do you feel drained, lethargic? Do you feel like you're just depleted, or do you actually feel energized? And so if we learn and we teach people how to listen to your body will always tell you where you need to be and where you need to go.
Hmm.
It's so as far as like finding the community, I would say start with doing the things that bring you joy, right? That means putting yourself in environments that you actually want to be in,
Right.
whether that is taking lessons or learning from a class. You're more likely and organically to meet the people that resonate with you and think like you. when you put yourself in those environments that feel good to you.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that's key. But it's also be okay. I have to say this, but be okay being a lone wolf.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like when you're doing this work and you're going through this journey, it's okay to shut the world out. I mean, not in an unhealthy way, but it's okay to put all that energy and focus towards yourself.
Mm.
Because to me, that's the most important work.
Right.
Like I even have a rule typically, obviously people have free agency to do what they want, but if I'm working with a single male or female, I always say, don't get into a relationship. It's like the best thing you can do if you want to get the most out of this with me, don't get into a relationship. And that's because when we get into relationships, your energy starts to go towards that relationship. And it's like, we got to make this important and we got to make this work. So I need all that energy that you would be expending towards someone else. I need you to put it towards you.
Right.
That's so foreign to people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if they're married, that's a challenge too, but it's just teaching them the skills of how they can actually start implementing and communicating in a healthy way
Hmm.
to their partner or their
Right.
family.
Right. Right. Yeah. There's like this rule for someone newly in recovery that in the first year of recovery, not to get involved in any sort of relationship. And it's the same thing. You need to have the focus on yourself. And so many times I see men going through divorce or relationship breakup immediately get involved in another relationship. And what ends up happening is that second relationship is the same as the first one because they haven't done their own work and they're bringing their baggage with them. So
Absolutely. You know what yeah.
go ahead. Go
You know
ahead.
what
So
I
that's
call that?
what what's that?
I call that same person, different face.
Right.
And so yeah, that's why you do need to work on your own stuff and heal yourself before you get into another relationship. And that's why I say, like, we're going to start here. And by the time that you're done working with me, we're going to be here. So why would you want to meet somebody in between? Because you don't want to meet them down here and then continue to grow. And then you're not at that same level.
Right.
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 So I feel like it's so, so important to stay single if you can, if you're in that space to really heal and work on yourself. So important.
Yeah. And what I tell the men that I work with that you'll be amazed if you do that, if you follow that formula, you'll be amazed at the relationship you will end up getting involved with. It'll be the relationship of your dreams,
Yeah,
what you envision, what you're putting out there. Like you said, it's that law of attraction. But it's not until you get healthier and deal with some of your own uh, unresolved issues from childhood. You mentioned that that you can have more of a clearer vision of that relationship that you want, and then it manifests.
absolutely. And
Mm.
I always say the better that you become, the better you attract,
Right.
right? So why not have that train of thought?
Right.
Work on becoming the very best that you can, utilizing all the tools that are available, doing the deep work, because then you have a better chance of meeting someone that is on that same page and same level,
Right.
right?
Right.
That it's actually going to be a healthy fit for you.
Right. Absolutely. You had
Yeah.
mentioned when we had our initial discussion something about tough love. Sometimes you have to have a little bit. You have to be a little tough. And how is it that you sometimes incorporate that in the work that you do with men?
Yeah, it's not always fun for me, and I say it just how it is. I say, if I may be candid or frank with you, but this is what I see, and what do you think about that? And so
Hmm.
it's really just being direct and getting to the point, but it's having those tough conversations. And honestly, to this day, Ed, I've never had a negative experience with that. Everyone always appreciates it and they want to hear the truth. It's not fun and it may not always resonate with them immediately, but I have to plant the seed.
Absolutely.
If I see something, I have to call it out. And 9 out of 10 times they usually circle back around and they're like, yeah, I see it. That makes sense.
Hmm.
It's not fun, but I'm just very direct in the way
Yeah.
that I communicate because there's no other way to I don't want to beat around the bush. I don't want
right,
to sugarcoat it. It
right.
doesn't help,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
you gotta do it.
yeah. It's like an arrow that pierces to the directly to what you what you're aiming at and what they need to hear. And like you said, sometimes it's planting a seed, but if eventually that man might look back at what you said and say, well, now I understand why she said what she did.
Yeah, it's just hardcore truth,
Right.
right? And when you speak the truth, then it's just the right way. It's just the way that makes sense. To me, it makes sense to them, and not saying it to be mean or hurtful.
Mm.
It's just, it is the way that it is.
Yeah. Have you ever worked with men who were in recovery, recovering from alcoholism?
I have. I've worked
Yeah.
with a couple of them that
Mhm.
have been in recovery from alcohol and drugs,
Mhm.
and a little bit harder, I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
because for a while in the beginning, I took it personally, like if they had a setback,
Mm.
like I didn't do my job. So it was hard for me to separate that.
Right.
And so typically there are certain behaviors that kind of align with people that have gone through recovery or in recovery. They kind of bleed out in other areas of their lives.
Mhm.
So it's really just understanding the person in their mind and the way that they're thinking that's maybe not going to be the typical way of a man
Mhm.
or that's thinking,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So empathy, right?
Yeah. But a lot of what you've talked about in your work with all men is, I think, important for men in recovery. It's the dealing with the emotions and having uh, a daily routine, journaling. Um, those are things that, as a wellness coach working with men in recovery, those are a lot of the things that I recommend. And then you talked about the foundational health practices, really important too, that self-care. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
structure is really good for people that have struggled with addiction, I have
Mhm.
found.
Yeah,
And honestly, I think structure is good for anyone,
right.
but when you need to have a structure in your life so you don't deviate and become tempted by maybe old behaviors,
Mhm.
right? So when you have that structure, and also I will say it comes down to that focus, and that focus is derived from understanding why you're doing what you're doing.
Right.
And the positive has to outweigh the negative,
Mm.
right? Like you're getting more from staying sober or clean or not surrounding yourself with these people that are tempting you than versus stepping away from your core values of what you really want for your life.
Right.
And so it's always coming back to, why are you doing what you're doing and why is that important to you?
Right.
And it's almost like tattooing it in their brain,
Hmm.
right? You have to switch that on of like, because we're human, we're always going to be tempted. There's always going to be something that will distract us. Anybody.
Right.
It's coming back to that focus. I'm doing this because I care about my health,
Mm-hmm.
because I care about my body or my relationships, right? And so I think that's huge for people of really understanding why they're doing something,
Mm-hmm.
not just doing it to do it, if
Right.
that makes sense.
And you're giving them new tools. If someone's relying on alcohol as a way to cope, you're giving them new tools so they don't have to go back to that old pattern of healthier tools.
Mhm.
So I think that's so important. So building that toolbox that keeps you away from needing to revert back to that crutch of alcohol or other drugs to deal with, let's say, anxiety or your feelings, your emotions, maybe trauma from childhood. Um, so giving them those tools is really beneficial.
Yeah, and that really comes back to teaching them how to accept themselves, right? And that when you accept yourself and you have that understanding of who you are, first you have to understand certain situations like have to just be an automatic no, right? Like you can't do it if it's a temptation, and understanding, if I go to this place, I'm going to be tempted to do this or
Right,
drink if I hang with friends.
right,
And so it's really coming back to that. is there still a part of you that you're not accepting yourself, so you feel like you need to cope because you can't deal with those feelings and those emotions, so you're turning to something external to numb you or
Right,
distract you?
right,
It to me, as I said, it all comes back to self-awareness,
right. Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's the self-awareness, but then it's also to know and not to do is not to know. So it's having that self-awareness and then needing to take action, um, accepting it and then taking action to be better.
Yeah, and
Mm,
honestly, I will say the gym or exercise is a great um, motivator to, like, if you do feel tempted, like, go and work out or
mm,
exercise if you're having that moment of susceptibility, right? Maybe go to the gym because you're going to feel better, right?
absolutely.
It's going to be a distraction. So it's almost like you have to change your environment. Sometimes if you do feel like you're tempted, change your environment and do something that's the healthy alternative,
Right.
right?
Yeah, and that's a great suggestion because you need to change your physiology. and
Yes.
and through changing your physiology through working out the gym. It could be just walking
Hmm.
outside, walking in nature, being in nature,
Hmm.
but moving your body um, and changing your physiology will it's going to release certain chemicals and hormones in the body that are going to make you feel better. So it's
Absolutely.
great point.
Yeah. So good, I think, to know that about yourself
Right.
too, right? Yeah.
If someone wanted to get in touch with you, how could they contact you?
Yeah, so I'm on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Rebecca Shocker, Instagram's Real with Rebecca. And
Mhm.
then you can also go to my website, which is realwithrebecca.com. You can learn a little bit more about me, my journey, and then I do have a place where you can book a call with me. I typically reserve those for serious people that want to change. It's not just a conversation, it's just to see if they're a good fit. But yeah, you can get a hold of me there, or like I said, on social media. I'm very responsive, but I really like people to be direct with me,
Mhm.
right? Just tell me what you're looking for, and then we'll go from there. Don't try to ask me how I'm doing.
Right.
That's not what this is
Yeah.
about.
Right.
So
I'll
yeah.
and I'll post those links in the description too, so people can reach out to you if they want. And I really appreciate this candid conversation. I hope that and I know that there's some men that are going to benefit from it. So again, thank you for sharing your experience, your wisdom, and and thank you for helping men.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This was fun, and hopefully I added some value, and always love having a conversation with intellectually smart people. So thank you.
Appreciate it, Rebecca. If you like that video, check out my other video on personal development.